Bonjour, bienvenue. Welcome to the National Managers Community Virtual Talk this Friday, May the 6th, 2022. My name is Mary Ann Medaric, and I am the NMC lead for Ontario. I'm joined today by my colleague, Valérie Pleude, Regional Lead for Quebec and Nunavut Region.
Bonjour, mon nom est Valérie Pleude, gestionnaire régionale pour la région Québec-Nunavut. Comme vous le savez peut-être, votre microphone et votre caméra ont été désactivés pour la session. Notre événement d'aujourd'hui sera enregistré et un lien vidéo YouTube sera disponible après la session. Pour l'expérience optimale, nous vous encourageons à vous déconnecter de votre VPN. Aussi, j'aimerais reconnaître que nous nous réunissons sur une terre autochtone qui a été habitée par des peuples autochtones depuis des temps ancestraux. Nous sommes reconnaissants de l'occasion qui nous a été donnée de nous réunir ici et nous remercions toutes les générations de personnes qui ont pris soin de cette terre depuis des milliers d'années. En particulier, j'aimerais reconnaître que je suis située sur le territoire du traité Grande Paix de 1701, territoire traditionnel des Mohawks. Puisque nous travaillons dans des endroits différents, nous sommes donc sur des territoires traditionnels autochtones différents. Je vous invite à prendre un instant pour réfléchir au territoire sur lequel vous vivez, travaillez et jouez.
We are very excited to end Mental Health Week with this much requested topic of emotional intelligence. We have guest speaker Jodi Leblanc, who will share tools, techniques, and strategies to help managers develop and refine their emotional intelligence competencies. Jodi is a proud public servant and certified coach with an EQI 2.0 EQ 360 certification. She has completed over 300 emotional intelligence workplace and leadership assessments and individual EQ coaching sessions with public servants at all levels. Welcome, Jodi, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Mary Ann and Geneviève. I will share my screen with you. Okay, so grateful to be here with all of you to wrap up Mental Health Week. And for the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence and then have 10 minutes for questions. So normally the sessions I deliver on emotional intelligence are 3 hours, sometimes a full day. So we are going to give you the Coles notes of all of the 15 competencies and to talk about the benefits, the competitive advantage, and also to help you take what you learned today and put it into an action plan so that you can continuously build your emotional intelligence competencies every day. So let's see, is my mouse working? Yes. So why should we build these competencies? Sometimes managers have courses and it's about strengthening competencies for their employees, how to help their employees. Well, this is all about for you, for your team, for you to be a better leader, really to make your work life and your personal life easier, more enjoyable, to help improve your mental health, also being more efficient and effective, and give you that competitive advantage. Sometimes we come across people that they're extremely brilliant and they know their technical competencies really well, but maybe they don't know how to work in a team or they don't want to connect with clients. So by having both a strong IQ and a strong EQ, emotional intelligence, you will have that competitive advantage. Everyone's going to want to work with you, collaborate with you. Easier, there'll be less conflicts. You'll just notice magic happening everywhere. I wouldn't have believed it until it actually happened to me. I read a book called EQ Edge and put into some of the practices in that book. And my colleague was like, what is going on? Are you a leprechaun here? You have good luck everywhere you go, because I was using a lot of those principles. So, aujourd'hui, le succès en affaires repose sur 15% de technologie et 85% d'intelligence émotionnelle. So, voici une citation de Tom Peters, auteur du livre Le Prix de l'Excellence. So, regardless of how smart we are, if we turn others off with abrasive behavior, if we're unaware of how we're presenting ourselves, or we cave in under minimal stress, no one will stick around long enough to notice how high our IQ is. So emotional intelligence is that key to relationships, both at work and outside of work. So when I did training across the country with various employees and managers, I asked them what are the best qualities of a leader and the qualities of your worst leader as well. And many of them listed all kinds of things. And when I looked at it, no one had said, I don't like how my manager, when they use formulas in Excel, they choose to do it manually. Or, I love how she writes reports, or how she types. All of these best leader and worst leader competencies that come out in these sessions were all emotional intelligence competencies. Sometimes they're known as soft skills, but I like to call them essential skills because I feel everyone needs to hone these skills. They're so important in everything that we do. So what exactly is emotional intelligence? I know many of you probably know what it is, but just so we're all on the same page, Daniel Goleman, he originally defined EQI, or emotional intelligence, that's the acronym, as an array of skills and characteristics that drive leadership performance. And he did become more popular back in 1995 when Daniel Goleman had written a book. It's funny, something to note, emotional intelligence competencies were originally in the IQ test back in the 60s or whenever that had come out, but for some reason they didn't make the cut. And if they had been in the IQ test many years ago, we wouldn't be here today because it would just be so ingrained in us from when we were growing up. So a few examples of the emotional intelligence are awareness of our emotions, how we control our emotions in stressful situations, how we express ourselves, and really how we maintain our interpersonal relationships with empathy as well. And so, for example, les études ont démontré que les gens avec une haute intelligence émotionnelle ont une meilleure santé mentale, une meilleure performance au travail et de plus grandes compétences en leadership. We look at emotional intelligence, increased team performance, decreased occupational stress, improved decision-making, améliorer la capacité de leadership, améliorer le bien-être personnel et réduire le rayonnement de l'effectif. Pour développer ces compétences, vous devez apprendre et appliquer les connaissances, les compétences et les attitudes d'emotional intelligence. So another thing to let you know, the difference as well between EQ and IQ. EQ is really that set of skills that enables us to make our way in a complex world. So the personal, the social, the common sense, the sensitivity, our overall intelligence. You'll see some examples here on the screen on the left. And our IQ, it really measures an individual's intellectual, analytical, logical, and rational abilities. Something funny that I learned through my studies of emotional intelligence is our IQ is at its prime at around 18 years old. That doesn't mean we cannot still be technical if we're over 18 years old. Each year, it gets a little bit harder and harder as our brain declines. We can still do it. It just takes more energy. But something really beneficial to know, emotional intelligence, we can enhance our EQI until age 85. And I really think beyond that if we work at it. So it doesn't have anything to do with our brain per se. It's a learned experience. It's not something we're born with. So when things happen to us, sometimes we can jump right from stimulus to behavior. So when something happens, if we don't like it, for example, if you're driving down the road and a car cuts you off, you might get really angry really quickly, where it'll just affect your day throughout versus that person has long gone and they have no idea what they did even impacted your day. So it's very important that we take what happens to us, we look at that emotion, we say, oh, deep breath here. Okay, what's actually happening here? Is this life or death? Is this, do I have the true picture? Can I ask questions? Remove our assumptions and our biases, and then interpret our results, and then we will react. We will have a lot better outcome in our emotional intelligence. So sometimes we can see people that react very quickly on the spot, and sometimes they will regret that because it's not the outcome. If they had thought it through, they most likely would have had a different outcome. In emergency situations, of course, we would jump to stimulus to behavior. If the building's on fire, you're not going to necessarily take that extra time. You're just going to run and get the fire extinguisher or call the 911. We have to do that in fight or flight. But in day-to-day activities, it's very important we go through that process. So this is the model of emotional intelligence. I call it the wheel, and it's broken out in 5 composite areas. And it was done by multi-health systems. And when I do my emotional intelligence assessments with managers and employees, there's an assessment of 133 questions, and it allows people to determine where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, and areas they can improve. It's a really comprehensive report, but it's broken down into the 5 areas. So we're going to go through those 15 competencies just to give you an overview of what they are. And I will also be sharing after the presentation a copy of this wheel and the definition of each so that you can really take 5 to 10 minutes of the end of your week and say, what worked well this week? What was tricky? Which of these competencies did I actually use? You know, I was really assertive in that meeting on Monday. What did I say or do that I could repeat again or replicate in the future if a situation came up? Or maybe my impulse control was a little low this week. Well, maybe next time, instead of the email that came in, instead of replying really quickly thinking that it was a certain tone they wrote in, maybe I'll pick up the phone and say, what did you mean by that email? I want to talk more about it, go for a little walk, or reply perhaps the next day. That's really how you're going to improve your competencies from day to day. So when we go through these definitions, think a little bit about it. Was I flexible this week? Well, you know, is this something I want to improve on? Would I see a greater outcome if I had a stronger in these areas? Or ones that, you know, you're really strong in already, you don't have to think about. Or even there's some you might have to dial back down sometimes. Sometimes when we're really empathetic in a situation, let's say someone says, oh, my coffee is cold. Oh, I'm so sorry. Do you want to talk about that? I feel really bad about your coffee being cold. Well, maybe we might need to dial our empathy down sometimes in situations if it makes people uncomfortable. The perfect objective is to have everything strong, but to really look at how it impacts our day-to-day interactions. So it's not a matter of getting 130 on the test in every way. It's really how it will apply differently every day that you do the assessment based on what's happening in your life. You'll see on the gray border the well-being. So when our competencies are in a line or they're strengthened, our emotional, social functioning, and our well-being will automatically increase as well. So it's a really powerful tool. I encourage you to look more into it. So I'm going to take you through the 15 competencies in the different realms and then give you some action plan items. So self-regard, this is really the ability to accept yourself just the way you are and have self-confidence. It's that general feeling of security, inner strength, self-confidence, self-assuredness, even self-adequacy. And l'estime de soi, c'est se respecter soi-même tout en comprenant et en acceptant ses forces et ses faiblesses. L'estime de soi est souvent associée à des sentiments de force intérieure et de confiance en soi. The second one is self-actualization. So this can really make or break our happiness, right? If we're feeling that we're fulfilled, we have awareness of our impulses, our desires, our opinions, our reactions, and we're generally interested in a wide variety of things so that we're able to connect with others on a variety of people as well and their interests. Next one is emotional self-awareness. So it's really that ability to be in touch. Individuals with a strong sense of self-awareness can recognize when you feel out of sorts or irritable, sad, or if you perceive how your feelings alter your behavior in a way that could possibly alienate others as well. Really that capacity to know what you're feeling and behaving and how it allows that degree of control over how we could potentially alienate others. l'expression émotionnelle est la capacité d'exprimer ouvertement ses émotions de façon verbale et non verbale. So we're noticing the stats I've been reading, 80% of communication is nonverbal. So it's been mostly difficult. I know a lot of times we have our cameras off during meetings or we're not seeing each other in person. We're only hearing their voice. So we don't always know, the words we use, their meaning, the tone, the volume of speech, expression on our face, our body language. It's really important for people to truly understand what we're saying. And people retain 7% of the words spoken, 38% of our tone, and 55% body language. So we often overlook the importance of how we come across to others, right? It's important. And if we're feeling sometimes that we really want to say something and our emotional expression, it's bottled up and it's hindering us, well, that's something we really want to take the time and go and work on our emotional expression, because we don't want to be bottling things up because it could cause us to burst out with aggressive behavior, whatever it may be, or we're feeling not as satisfied because we're not actually able to speak what we're actually feeling. Sometimes if we're introverted, our emotional expression doesn't have to be extremely high because perhaps we solve everything on the inside and we're not actually feeling like we're hindered that, oh, no, well, I've already solved that on the inside. I don't even have to speak it out to anyone. It really depends. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's for all of us to determine in ourselves how these competencies are going to help us and our relationships. Assertiveness. Many of you would already have heard of assertiveness. We talk about it regularly. It involves that ability to communicate clearly while at the same time being sensitive to the needs of others and their responses. You'll also see passive. So that's difficulty expressing ourselves to others. And if we don't address that over time, it could become passive aggressive, which could appear to go, where we feel like we're going along with the ride. People think, oh, everything's okay. But inside, we have resentment for others taking advantage of our good nature. And then aggressiveness, people offer little or nothing in return for their agenda. It's all about them. So we really want to be in that middle there where it's a win-win situation without bulldozing over others or feeling like we're always the one giving. Indépendance est la capacité d'être autonome et libre de toute dépendance émotionnelle à l'égard des autres. La prise de décision, la planification et les tâches quotidiennes sont effectuées de façon autonome. So this independence is really about being self-directed, self-reliant in planning and making decisions. We can still consult with others. We don't have to be like in the photo at the end of the mountain there, having to do everything alone. But it just means that we can stand on our own 2 feet. The buck stops here. We're taking charge of our own life and our own work and being our own person and seeking our own direction. So it's considered one of the 15 competencies, and it does fit well with many others. Interpersonal relationships. So many of you have seen this even in jobs.gc.ca and applying for jobs. We use interpersonal relationships to describe a lot of things. It's really known as people skills, when we understand, interact with, and we relate well to others in a variety of situations. It's really establishing and maintaining that relationship, the give and take. If someone calls you up and asks you for something after they've already dropped their work 10 times and you say no to them, well, your interpersonal relationships are not going to be as strong if every time we need someone, they're there to help, but when they want to reciprocate, sorry, we're too busy. Well, it's that give and take piece that can really help strengthen our relationships. Even things like listening more than we speak can really be helpful, that truly listening to understand, not listening to respond. Remembering things about people, demonstrating that, that you value them as well. It's very crucial. Some things for leaders for high interpersonal EQ communication. Learn conflict resolution. If I'm sure all of you have some experience in that, but Leaders that know how to resolve conflicts between team members, clients, or managers is a crucial aspect. Improving your communication skills, even looking at personality differences. Perhaps you could have your team do some psychometric tools, insights discovery, Myers-Briggs, DISC, 16 personalities, whatever it may be, to really determine the preferences and how we can adapt and connect with others. And learn how to appreciate others as well. So you can inspire, as a leader, you can really inspire that loyalty in your team by giving that appreciation when it's earned as well. So I know as managers, you're really a Swiss Army knife in every way. You're trying to keep yourself strong in every way, but also being a chameleon to every employee of how you can help them and take obstacles out of their way too. So I know it's an extremely tough job. So I'm hoping these competencies, by going through them, will not only help yourself, but your teams and make things a little bit easier. So, empathy. L'empathie est la capacité de reconnaître, de comprendre et d'évaluer la façon dont les autres se sentent. Elle implique la capacité d'exprimer clairement sa compréhension du point de vue d'autres et de se comporter d'une manière qui respecte les sentiments des autres. This week, I was very surprised to read a stat. I guess it was May 2nd, the first of Mental Health Week. CMHA, Mental Health Association, they said they shared a study, only 13% of Canadians are feeling empathetic. So it's really dropped. It's dropped about 10% since the beginning of pandemic. So we're having a bit of empathy fatigue. And their national CEO had said that decline in empathy is really concerning to her. And if we aren't able to resolve our conflicts and the relationships that we have at work or at home, we really need to be able to understand each other even when we don't agree. So I had no idea that empathy had dropped so low, but it's because of the last 2 years and people are feeling exhausted for feeling empathy. So it's something we have to kind of work hard to ramp back up. So it's really the ability to be aware of, understand, and appreciate feelings of others. It's simply a skill that allows us to see and experience the world from another's perspective, right? We don't have to solve problems. A lot of times people just want us to listen they want to be heard. They don't want us to say, oh, I've thought of 10 other ways I could help you through this. Well, we could get to that next, but sometimes we just need to have them be heard and listen. Empathetic leaders. So you help develop the people on your team. You challenge others who are acting unfairly, give constructive feedback, and listen to those who need it. And also, if you want to earn that respect and loyalty, you really you need to show them all that you care by being empathetic. Social responsibility. So this is really doing something for your team, your division, your organization, or even society at large that doesn't benefit you directly. So even if you were at the office per se, when we're back in the office and you see, oh, that piece of flooring has come undone. Well, I guess someone else will get to that. All of a sudden comes along and trips. Well, maybe I could have put a piece of tape on that so that I could have avoided that. It wasn't my job, but I felt it was my responsibility so that someone didn't get hurt. Very, very simple example, but it's just having that mindset of trying to be kind, to be helpful. Le contrôle des impulsions est la capacité de résister ou de retarder une impulsion et une tentation d'agir et implique d'éviter des comportements téméraires et la prise trop rapide de décisions. So really, it's that ability to resist or delay an impulse and drive or temptation to act. So avoiding rash behaviors, being composed when we're stressed, able to put the brakes on any angry, aggressive, or hostile behavior. And those with low impulse control, sometimes they're described as hot-headed or they leap before they look. So sometimes in the moment we need to make decisions quickly. I'm not saying go to low impulse control for things where you need to make a decision quickly, but it is really something we want to look at for sometimes when we make decisions, we make them very, very quickly that could impact us or others as well. Reality testing. So this is really the ability to see things the way they are. So taking off the rose-colored glasses if we're wearing them, seeing that world around us in an objective way, how it really is, not how we think it is, and recognizing where problems could exist and perceiving opportunities when they come into sight. So, la résolution des problèmes est la capacité de trouver des solutions aux problèmes malgré les émotions qu'ils suscitent. Pour résoudre les problèmes, il faut comprendre comment les émotions influencent sur la prise de décision. That ability to find solutions to problems in situations where emotions are involved and really to understand how these emotions impact our decision making. So it can be being conscientious, disciplined, methodical, and systematic in approaching these problems. Donc, la flexibilité consiste à adapter les émotions, les pensées et les comportements à des circonstances ou à des idées inconnues, imprévisibles et dynamiques. It really, when Charles Darwin had a quote, "It's not the strongest or the most intelligent that survive, but the one most responsive to change." That ability to adjust your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors to changing situations and conditions. So crucial skill as well, especially in the world that we've been living in the last few years. Stress tolerance, so the ability to withstand adverse events, stressful situations without developing physical or emotional symptoms. So one thing I will ask people if I'm coaching them, if their stress tolerance appears low in their self-assessment, I might say, what happens when someone brings you a stressful situation? Well, I squeeze my fist, I stomp my feet, I throw my computer, and I scream at my team. Okay, well, that definitely is not only affecting your physical health, your mental health, as well as your relationships with your team, because no one will want to bring things to you. I know that's an extreme example, but if that is the case for us, we really have to take steps to improve that, right? That's staying calm, maintaining control in situations that are stressful. Not an easy one to do if we're working in a very stressful environment. L'optimisme témoigne de l'attitude positive d'une personne et des regards qu'elle pose sur la vie. Il s'agit de garder espoir et de faire preuve de résilience malgré des revers occasionnels. Donc, optimism, it's that ability to look at the brighter side of life and maintain that positive attitude, even in the face of adversity, remaining hopeful and resilient despite setbacks. Where to from here? You've seen the 15 competencies, and while you were going through the exercise of me bringing them up, you were kind of in the back of your mind thinking of, that might be one I want to look at a little more deeply. Some things that you can do after our session today is consider how you'd like to improve your EQ. You know, it could be really great right now, but you might change jobs. You might have other things happen in your life that you might want to take some time to improve that. Or you might want to put that on a shelf for a month and recheck in again and say, yeah, I'm ready to look at that again. Consider completing an EQI 2.0 assessment. And that is really great because not only does it tell you your strengths, but it shows where your weaknesses are based on how you assess yourself. And for managers, you can also do a 360. So not only are you getting your own responses, you're getting responses from your clients, your internal clients, your direct reports, your own, those who report to you as well, your friends, your family, whoever you would like, and you can actually see, am I being too harsh on myself when judging this? Oh, wow, my self-regard is here, but everyone sees me here. Maybe there's a gap. What can I do to change that, right? So it's a really useful report. As well, you can obtain some resources related to learning more about EQ. You can take this presentation and go through and say, well, this month I'm really going to focus perhaps on my flexibility. I'm really going to be conscious of that and do some reading, check out some book summaries, maybe some YouTube videos, and I'm really going to spend some time on that. I'm going to ask for feedback from others and work on that. Could be any of the 15. I wouldn't suggest tackling all 15 at once, but just picking away at it, one bite at a time, as they say. Use the ideas to make your communication and relationships better. So lots of ideas, even just to do some research on any of these competencies and see what's out there. There's lots of different videos that you could share even with your team to bring them in on this journey so that they feel like they're improving as well based on what you've learned here today or what you've discovered in this session. Develop the self-awareness with practices. You can do mindfulness, reflection, journaling, coaching, meditation. All of these can play a role in your emotional intelligence journey. And do that 5 or 10 minute piece each week if you can, where you really focus on these and how your week was and reflect. We don't often take the time to reflect on how our week went. And if you block it in your calendar, it's a lot easier to do that. And just take that mindfulness time. And things get autopilot. All of a sudden, months go by and it's like, oh, well, what actually even happened here, right? So it's so important to include that in your practice and in your daily week. I once worked for a senior leader that had said, if we wait till our to-do list is completed to focus on our own professional development, we will spend our whole career with our own professional development on the back burner. You need to carve out that time, even yourselves as managers, to spend that reflection time on your professional development, putting yourself first so that we can better help others. And choose to be part of the solution. Focus on your EQ competencies and practice in the workplace. Get others involved, as I mentioned, and ask for feedback on specific EQ competencies. Ask for trusted colleague, maybe your own peers at work, whatever it may be, your colleagues, to give you feedback on different competencies as well. So remember that what you're learning here in the 30 minutes, our quick 30 minutes together, or 45 including question period, it's not something that you're just going to learn once and never think of it again. Same if you do an assessment, you're not just going to take it, oh, I'm so good at emotional intelligence. Well, no, you really need to take that. It's just a baseline on that given day. You need to take it further. It's really that lifetime practice. And it's possible to keep improving, as I mentioned earlier, all the way up to 85 or beyond if we work at it. It's any work we put into our emotional intelligence, it will come back to us tenfold. So thank you so much. So I will open it up to questions. I think we're right on time.
Merci beaucoup, Jodi. Alors, Mary Ann, à ton tour.
Excellent, Mary Ann. Would you like me to close my screen or?
Thank you very much. So we'll do the question and answering period now.
Great. Did you want me to stop sharing or keep it on?
Yes, please. If you can stop sharing, that'd be great.
Perfect. Is it stop? Did it stop?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent.
It did. Thank you, Jodi. So as Mary Ann said, we will now open it for the floor for the question. Feel free to raise your hand or type your question in the language of your choice in the chat space. Nous allons maintenant débuter la période des questions. Nous vous invitons à lever la main ou encore à taper votre question dans l'espace de clavardage, s'il vous plaît. On a déjà une question pour vous, Jodi. So we already have a question for you, Jodi, in the chat. Actually, there's many of them.
Oh,
so
great.
I hope you're ready. Yeah, I hope you're ready to answer a few of them. Here, the first one here, it's more information, I would say. It's a question in French. Est-ce que le EQ1 2.0 existe en français et comment faire une évaluation? So is there the EQ, sorry, 2.0 in French, and how to do an assessment?
Excellent. Oui, c'est disponible en français, anglais et beaucoup des autres langues. C'est une très bonne question. Il existe plusieurs fonctionnaires certifiés en intelligence émotionnelle au sein du gouvernement du Canada. Vous pouvez vous adresser à vos réseaux et ressources humaines pour voir s'il y en a dans votre ministère. Et puis, vous pouvez vérifier si l'école à la fonction publique a une liste des personnes certifiées. Et si vous ne trouvez personne, envoyez-moi une courriel et je pourrai vous aider à trouver quelqu'un pour faire votre évaluation.
Merci beaucoup, Jodi. We got another question in English this time, though. Are EQ1 assessments always individual, or can you do an EQ1 assessment of a team or as a whole? Donc, est-ce que l'évaluation EQ1 est toujours individuelle, ou est-ce que vous pouvez faire une évaluation pour une équipe ou comme un groupe?
Yes, that's an excellent question as well. So there are many options. You can do an individual workplace assessment. You can also do a leadership assessment. I recommend that one for managers because it shows you a gold bar and it references managers and leaders across the globe. As well, there is an EQ 360 for an individual, like I mentioned in the presentation, where you can get others to rate you as well to really give you that 360 approach. If your team all does an individual assessment, you are able to do a group report to determine where, not necessarily you won't know who it is, but you'll know where your strengths are in the team. It'll plot it out for you and give you a bit of an action plan of areas that you'd want to focus on. So the EQI is very confidential in the sense that if you do an assessment, it will never be used for your future of, or at least the way I use it confidentially to help coach people to improve it. I don't share that report with anyone for purposes of hiring or weeding people out if they're strong here or weak here. It's really an individual tool since it is a self-assessment.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jodi. We keep having questions here, so I'd like to address most of them if it's possible.
Sure.
It's a French question, Jodi. Pouvez-vous répéter combien en pourcentage nous retenons du ton, du non-verbal et du discours d'une personne qui parle? So in English, could you please repeat what is the percentage that we will remember from tone and non-verbal and speech from a person that is talking? Do you remember that by heart or not?
I'll just quickly look because it's it was the emotional expression. I don't have that one by heart only because it's numbers I don't want to get wrong. But what I will do is just find my page there and let you know, but we can go to the next question if you'd like.
Absolutely. Anyways, if there's a question that have not been answered.
I found it. It was for emotional expression. 7% people retain 7% of words spoken, 38% tone, 55% body language. So I can check on the actual reference for that and share it with you to put in the GC Connects.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We keep getting a French question, Jodi, so I hope you're ready. The question is, est-ce que les hommes et les femmes sont sur le même pied d'égalité au niveau des émotions? So in English, does men and women, or do men and women are on the same level when it comes to emotion? That's a very interesting question.
Oui, c'est une bonne question. Je sais qu'il y a beaucoup d'études sur le sujet, mais c'est différent dans les différentes villes ou pays dans le monde. I know for one of the slides you might have noticed it was for emotional expression. There were a picture of 9 men on there, and I was hoping someone would comment on that. Why does she have all men on that slide? But it's usually when growing up, many men in Canada were treated that they aren't able to show their emotions, right? So we've moved quite a bit over the many years for that, and it's something that I know my own father would never cry in front of me, right? But now I'm seeing others that we're now on equal ground. So it's really depends on the competency. But I can definitely include some resources on that as well. Excellent question.
Thank you, Jodi. We got another question here in English. It's a long question, so I'll go through it. Thanks again for the presentation. For the EQ categories, is there any research or evidence that one or two categories that have the most impact on developing one's leaderships and hardest for an individual to learn and master? The person wants to get a sense of once she should prioritize in her mentoring, coaching, development of her employee. So, quickly in French, la personne se demande donc si il y a des catégories ou des recherches ou des évidences qui montrent que pour une ou deux catégories, il y aurait plus d'impact sur le développement du leadership d'une personne et qui serait peut-être plus dur pour un individu d'apprendre ou de maîtriser, en fait. Votre réponse, Jodi?
Another excellent question. And if you plan to do the EQ 360, it breaks it down into 4 leadership styles. So it really will depend on which leadership style you choose. But I know self-perception is how we see ourselves on the inside. Self-expression is how we express ourselves. I think the interpersonal would be really something we'd want to hone, especially for leading others. The decision-making component is very relevant when emotions are involved. I'd say the stress management and the interpersonal for myself are the most crucial, especially during the period we're in right now. But it could be very different based on the leadership style that you possess or that you're looking to dive into. Happy to talk offline if that individual would like to send me a note and I could provide more info. But because they're on a wheel, they're all considered very equal in the sense that we want to balance them as best we can.
Well, that's a good answer. Thank you. We have time for maybe one last question, Jodi, if that's okay. We got one here that is short. Who inspires you and why? Qui vous a inspiré et pourquoi?
Wow, excellent question. Well, I actually had a leader when I worked at Veterans Affairs named Wendy Lockhart. She's since retired, but she is the perfect middle ground in leadership. It's the sweet spot of leadership, I call it. I wrote an article on it before. So it's she wasn't a micromanager, but she cared. She really was involved and helped us. And she wasn't a macromanager where she left us alone if we needed it. She was in the middle, ready to roll up her sleeves and help us out. She treated us like family. She cared so much. And I aspire to be like her someday. She was just incredible leader. And if we were to do an assessment here, she'd be off the charts, I know, in all competencies. Just a brilliant woman, if any of you know her.
Thank you so much, Jodi. Merci beaucoup. C'est vraiment tout le temps qu'on avait pour la session d'aujourd'hui. La CNG publiera la vidéo de la session d'aujourd'hui sur sa chaîne YouTube et va également distribuer le lien à la fin de la rencontre. Veuillez surveiller, s'il vous plaît, le formulaire de commentaires de la CNG qui vous sera également envoyé via courriel à la fin de cette session. Nous vous serions évidemment très reconnaissants de bien vouloir le remplir. Si jamais il y a des questions auxquelles on n'a pas pu répondre ou si vous avez encore des questions en suspens, veuillez nous les envoyer via la boîte aux lettres de la CNG qui a été publiée dans la boîte de clavardage, le chat, et nous ferons de notre mieux pour y répondre.
Thank you so much, Jodi, for taking the time to join us today and for this amazing presentation. I also want to thank my colleague, Valerie, for co-facilitating with me, Hamish and Genevieve for all the support behind the scenes, and thank you all for joining us today. As we wrap up Mental Health Week, I encourage you to do some self-care this weekend. As managers, I know that you often take care of everyone else and everything, not having much time to unwind or unplug yourself. So please take the time to take care of you this weekend and safeguard your mental health. Until next time, best wishes et bonne fin de journée. À la prochaine.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure. Bonne journée.